Well, really pleased to be joined today by Neil Murphy, CEO of Bytes. Neil, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Nice to be on the show.
Neil, I was wondering, Bytes obviously very well known to very many investors, but I thought it would be a good way of kicking off if you could just provide a brief overview of the company, the business model, and also, you've been with the business for a number of years. Some of the major trends that have also benefited, that Bytes have benefited from, in addition to strong execution. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Howard. So Bytes has been around for over 40 years, based just southwest of London, just in a town called Leatherhead. Just over 1,000 people now. We grew up in a similar way, I suppose, to Softcat and Computer Centre, and most people would say that we resemble those companies in a number of different ways. I think our strategy is predicated really on being a software-focused, value-added reseller with some services, and that's a deliberate sort of strategic direction for our business, and it's certainly paid off in the last 5 to 10 years. And that's coincided really with a shift in the IT landscape quite considerably, really, towards software as a service, subscription-based licensing, and of course cloud. And our focus is in all of those areas. So I think we've benefited really as the IT landscape has sort of morphed from this sort of on-premise data center world to more of a cloud-denominated software as a service environment. And as a software business, we've seen good growth over the last 10, 15 years particularly. We listed the company in December 2020, so we've had just almost 3 years, in fact, as a listed entity. And the company has not really changed much in that period of time. I think the key thing really that we've noticed is scale. Our business is going to continue to grow as long as we can invest in the business from a personnel perspective. Yes, we need to keep a bit agile, particularly now with the onset of AI, which is going to be a defining trend, I think, for the coming decade. So for us, a continuation of an ongoing strategy, and more of the same to a great degree. Yeah.
Brilliant. So yeah, look, we've seen that as well, and that sort of digital transformation tailwind has been blowing strongly, and really benefited what it probably kicked off, as far as I can remember, probably started 2013, 2014, and then sort of kicked off more in earnest, in the last 5 years. And I guess with the crystal ball gazing is we're now thinking, to what extent does that continue, or does that morph, and how does AI play a role? So it's very difficult, given that we're so early on, but to what extent do you, and you touched on it, to what extent do you think AI could be a catalyst for IT spend going forward?
Well, I think it's fair to say AI in one form or another has been with us for many, many years. I think what is particularly noticeable with this last 12 months is that the marketing departments have really got hold of AI, because frankly, this isn't a new sort of technology. You can go back 10 years to businesses that were probably around too soon for their own good. Autonomy was a business that we that we'll all be familiar with for sort of 10 years ago, which really tried to pave the way, but in terms of delivering solutions, I think people struggled in that period of time. So I think AI is embedded in a number of security vendors' solutions already, and has been for a number of years. It is going to be a game changer for our industry. In fact, when I think about how long I've been in this game, sort of 30, 40 years or so, I always keep sort of saying to myself, how can we keep this sort of evolution, this constant change, and this growth going? And every year something new seems to come along, which creates change. The common denominator I've noticed in our IT world is change. We like change. For our business, change means disruption. It means new planning, new products, new solutions, and I think AI is going to be huge. But you can see with the way Microsoft is moving at the moment that embedding AI across its entire platform is going to create an awful lot of new business for that particular business. And I think if you look at the other major vendors and the super vendors, particularly IBM can't be sort of discounted from this equation. You know, the whole sort of IBM Watson and the technologies that it's creating around it in that IBM ecosystem can't be underestimated. You know, we don't play in that particular space, but from what I read, you know, IBM have got some fantastic new products coming to market in the next few years. But same for Google, same for all the mega vendors. Their investments in this area are huge. We're primarily concerned with the Microsoft ecosystem, and that's going to be enormous for us in terms of what in terms of potential opportunity and expansion of our business and so on. But just imagine if you're a partner of all of those particular businesses, it'd be tough to keep up with them all. So I think AI it's a bit like, I know people have equated it to the onset of the internet. I think that's a bit of an exaggeration, because I think AI is an extension of desktop technology, essentially, but more useful and more practical, more innovative, more creative. I mean, from what we've seen here in our pilot testing, you know, really transformational capabilities on the desktop for an average user to create additional productivity and efficiency. It's just really exciting. You know, for the first time in 20, 30 years, I personally am quite excited about how I can do my own work differently and more effectively. So I think it's a superb sort of development for us and for the industry.
Super. So Neil, as a follow-on to that, whose marketing department's doing a particularly good job right now? I guess that, I mean, you've obviously got a very good relationship with Microsoft, and they're taking a very forward role. But I assume that you've got a very disciplined and focused approach to partners, but has this made you not rethink, but think, okay, we need to be very much proactive in our partners in terms of, right, okay, we need to be partnering with the right people because this could be a really important time for them and us?
Yeah, I think we backed the right horse 25, 30 years ago when we became a partner with Microsoft, and we've continued to put more wood behind the arrowhead in that relationship ever since. You know, we're Microsoft's largest partner in the UK. We have more contracts and commercial agreements with Microsoft customers than any other partner in the UK. That gives us a certain insight into how Microsoft operates. Clearly, I think their marketing department is working very effectively. Their marketing teams across the globe consist of thousands of individuals, all trying to think of ways for us to part with our money, essentially, and doing a cracking job at it. I mean, I think that their ability to monetize their inventions is outstanding. There was a time, I think 10, 15 years ago, when people might question their Microsoft investments. You know, they might question the quality of some of the Microsoft products that were around in those days. I can't remember the last time a customer questioned the quality of the Microsoft product range. I can't remember the last time I can remember the last time customers queried pricing. It was quite recently. You know, I think a few eyebrows were raised when Microsoft pricing was first announced on Copilot. But then I think people started to equate the pricing of the products with the additional potential productivity. We jokingly internally at Bytes were comparing $30 a month per user to, you know, how much we spend on sandwiches, you know, and it's a lot more than $30 a month. And I think we'll get more use out of Microsoft Copilot than we will out of the sandwiches, was the joke we were having in the office. So I think their marketing department's working brilliantly well. And I think it's only just getting started, you know, in terms of the crest of a wave. I think there's a huge buildup of interest. I think it'll manifest itself in actual business in this coming couple of months and into next year. Certainly you can buy these products now, of course. I think, though, lots of customers are in that phase of let's wait and see. We also have a lot of customers who are piloting the technology at the moment, and I think they have to be pretty careful how it's implemented. It has to be done properly with a huge amount of thought given to things like cybersecurity, the data stewardship, the guardianship of the data, who has access and permissions to what data. I think it's going to create an awful lot of data while we're on the subject of data. I think the exponential growth in data within the data center environment is going to create new requirements to manage that data and also to back up that data as well as securing it. So I think there's ancillary benefits that we'll see in the IT industry, which will create new business and revenues for particular companies involved in those particular areas. So it's a really sort of monumental shift, I think, that we are witnessing right now, the very early stages of it.
Interesting. Yeah, you can definitely see with Microsoft how they're positioned to monetize both sides of the same coin, both via Azure and the applications and the productivity, but also monetize, the need to manage and analyze the data at the same time.
Yeah.
We'll come back to just these themes in my last question, but just bringing it back to you, I wonder whether we've just talked about, partners and backing the right horse in Microsoft, but is there anything that you're thinking of in terms of what Bytes can do, as well as benefit from market growth, but also enhance your market share as a result, being the largest Microsoft reseller or being one of the largest resellers point blank? I wonder whether new technology presents an opportunity to differentiate via more resource scale of the like, in terms of whether that can present you an early mover opportunity, those sorts of things, in terms of how you're thinking from a sort of a competitive standpoint and how to benefit from technological change.
Yeah, I mean, front of mind for us is always, our growth strategy. This represents a tailwind in that IT sort of growth environment that we've been lucky enough to be a part of for several years now. The interesting thing about growth, though, for us, you have to be careful when you grow. When you grow a business, as we've discovered, you have to do it in a sort of carefully considered fashion. I mean, there's a great temptation to sort of invest in a whole host of new people and resources and salespeople to go and land grab and maybe get ahead of the competition. You then might find you struggle to cope with that growth if you do it in a disproportionate fashion. For us, I think, our objective has always been to enjoy double-digit growth. I mean, obviously, I know that can mean anything from 10 to 99, but it tends to be at the lower echelon of that sort of spectrum. So, we also think that we shouldn't rush as well, because there are a lot of unknowns in this space as well right now. And I think what we're seeing, certainly from Microsoft, which is the most tangible way for us to monetize this wave, is I think we're looking at version 1. I think as we go into 2024, we're going to be seeing version 2, 3, 4, in terms of upgrades and so on, as people discover technical issues or bugs or whatever they might be, because there's no way that Microsoft have thought of absolutely everything that's going to impact these new technologies. There will be new versions coming out. So I think we need to also have a bit of caution as we stride forward in terms of adoption, testing, piloting, and so on. So rather than rushing out there, I think we ourselves are also, I'll take our own organization. We have 100 pilot licenses in both of our business operations, and we're testing the technologies, and that's enabling us to advise our own clients as to what they need to think about as well. So I think going forwards with caution, but with optimism, is our position. We certainly think that this is going to help us grow the business. But as I say, we want to grow at the right kind of pace with the right kind of caution as we find unknowns, because that's certainly what we will be discovering. So I think, great opportunity, but just be going at it with a bit of caution.
And then, final question, Neil. I can understand how you would want to manage the growth, but to an extent, it's an unknown, because the big unknown is uptake. And that's, I guess, the final question is that, having had conversations as you with Microsoft or your customers, I'd be very intrigued as to what sort of appetite or what sort of and the rate of that is very interesting. How you feel customers might adopt, for example, Copilot. You touched on the sort of $30, almost a doubling of a 365 license. So you think, okay, there's a big opportunity there. How were you or Microsoft thinking about how customers might take advantage of Azure workloads, which has already happened or is already being a tailwind, and as well Copilot, probably more as a theme for your FY25 rather than FY24, I assume.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, we saw Microsoft's last quarterly results, and we saw that growth in Azure for Microsoft, which pleasantly surprised the market, I think. And that growth is primarily driven by the uptake of various versions of Copilot. Because, Copilot GitHub, for example, Copilot for Windows, which have been around for a bit now. And so it's going to drive greater consumption of Azure. That's for certain. Microsoft will benefit from that, and so will Microsoft partners. When we look at the monetization opportunity going forwards, we've not built anything into our current financial year because there's only a few months of that to run to the end of February, as you say. We have got customers with a whole range of experiences. For example, there are customers out there with just a few hundred employees who are going all in and are buying. I think to qualify, you have to buy at least 300 licenses, but you also, right now, you can only buy it through enterprise agreements, and you have to have a minimum of 500 users. So there are customers out there with 300 users who are buying 500 licenses to qualify, so that they can get everybody equipped for Copilot. Now, that's an extreme case. Most customers, let's say white-collar organizations, will be piloting this technology with a subset of their workforce. And I expect the professional services, finance, insurance, banking, in those kinds of environments, I think over the next couple of years, you'll get 100% uptake in those businesses over the next couple of years. So if we're looking at a point in 2025, you're going to get vast swathes of businesses that are running 365 and 365 Copilot, i.e. spending an awful lot more on Microsoft. But then you're going to get other organizations, let's take the National Health Service, where you've only really got the clerical, administrative, and management functions who would benefit from an uptake of Copilot. So you're going to have those experiences and everything in between. I think that the opportunity, therefore, for us is somewhat, therefore, hard to predict. But you also got to think as well that during the course of next year, there'll be up to 120 different Microsoft Copilot products. We're talking predominantly here about Azure and Microsoft Copilot, but you're going to have Copilot for CRM, you've got a Copilot for security Copilots, security for Dynamics, and so on and so forth, all of which come with a price tag that Microsoft and predominantly will benefit from, and partners will also benefit, depending on which part they play in the Microsoft ecosystem. So we're thinking about this. We're coming up for our budgeting right now for 2024 and 5, and we're busy working out what it might mean for us. But of course, on a call like this, I'd be quite conservative about my expectations. I think it's going to be a strong tailwind for the industry, but it's also going to be a tailwind for the hardware business, because you need Windows 11. Next year, you're going to see Windows 12 coming out as well, of course. Now, then, of course, you're going to have vendors who specialize in data management and backup and storage of data that are also going to benefit as you get this exponential growth in new data created by artificial intelligence that needs to be stored and managed within either your own data center or in your outsourced data center. So this is going to be a pretty significant tailwind for the entire IT industry, and I include the hardware industry in this, because you could eat of the chip technology that you need to run these applications is one thing, But of course, the chips are encased in things called laptops and desktops and servers. And, we're coming up to the refresh cycle, of course, from COVID, and with the requirement to run Windows 11, a lot of kits will need to be replenished so that it is suitably sort of quick enough to run Windows 11 competently in all of the apps that you're going to need to run on your local hardware. So I think this is going to be a significant sort of move for the vast swathe of partners in the IT reseller world, particularly as we go into 24 and into 25. So it represents a really strong tailwind for the industry generally.
Neil, that's really useful, and thanks so much again for joining us. We really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure chatting.
Good speech as well, Harold.